the next few minutes, I'm going to give you 2 almost effortless ways to turn your life around. By the time we're done, you'll have a high 6-figure salary, a new house, and a Porsche in the driveway. And if you believe any of this, I have a couple of bridges I could sell you. Today, I'm going to look at pop psychology and self-help techniques, which may be entirely authentic and workable on planet Fantasia. But to make them work here on planet Earth, you need to plant your feet firmly in the clouds. First up, creative visualization. That's a technique where you can use the power of your mind to magic up anything you can possibly imagine. This was big in the 1980s, when I was 40 years younger than I am now. I didn't believe it then, and I don't believe it now. But this is an industry that has pulled in trillions of dollars. That's trillions with a TRI. Trillions of dollars from people who definitely do know a lot about helping themselves. Let's see what we can learn from Shakti Gawain.
Today, I invite you on a transformative journey, one that will not only redefine your present, but also dramatically shape your future. It's a journey where you'll learn to harness the full potential of your innermost desires through the powerful technique of creative visualization. Imagine being able to turn your dreams into reality, not through mere chance, but through a deliberate process that taps into the laws of the universe. Every thought you have emits a signal, like a radio broadcast, into the universe. Creative visualization is about fine-tuning that broadcast to attract what you desire. Trust the universe's timing and wisdom. Your job is to send out the desires and maintain the emotional state that aligns with them. The universe's job is to handle the details. Remember that each day is a new opportunity to create the life you've always wanted.
I used to think that popular music, the commercial pop music of the 70s and 80s, was the worst thing ever. But I stand corrected. I've been wrong about that the whole time. Moving on, in the 2010s and 2020s, we've been introduced to slightly less unbelievable ways of manifesting imaginary successes into reality using only the power of our minds. The current wave of magical thinking that I'm discussing today was introduced by social psychologist Amy Cuddy.
I want to start by offering you a free, no-tech life hack, and all it requires of you is this, that you change your posture for 2 minutes. I became especially interested in nonverbal expressions of power and dominance. And what are nonverbal expressions of power and dominance? Well, so in the animal kingdom, they are about expanding. So you make yourself big, you stretch out, and humans do the same thing. So they do this both when they have power sort of chronically, and also when they're feeling powerful in the moment. So powerful people tend to be, not surprisingly, more assertive and more confident. Physiologically, there also are differences on 2 key hormones, testosterone, which is the dominance hormone, and cortisol, which is the stress hormone. We decided to bring people into the lab and run a little experiment, and these people adopted for 2 minutes high power poses or low power poses. And I'm just going to show you 5 of the poses, although they took on only 2. This is what happens. They come in, they spit into a vial. We, for 2 minutes, say, you need to do this or this. We then ask them, how powerful do you feel on a series of items? And then we take another saliva sample. Here's what we find on testosterone. From their baseline when they come in, high-power people experience about a 20% increase, and low-power people experience about a 10% decrease. Here's what you get on cortisol. High-power people experience about a 25% decrease, and the low-power people experience about a 15% increase. So 2 minutes lead to these hormonal changes that configure your brain to basically be either assertive, confident, and comfortable, or really stress-reactive.
Now, a very small percentage of Miss Cuddy's practical self-help advice does stand up to empirical testing. Power posing, like Wonder Woman or Superman, actually does leave you feeling more confident and powerful in your own mind. But her claims about increased testosterone and lowered cortisol cannot be reproduced. Many qualified labs and scientists, researchers have tried and concluded that it's just not so. Nonetheless, she has received support and affirmation from some of the most influential characters in the self-help industry. Here is the inimitable Andy Dooley.
Hey, I'm Andy Dooley, and today we are going to do a power pose together. Amy Cuddy, a social psychologist out of Harvard University, she discovered the power of physiology, and there's a thing called a power pose. So a power pose is putting your hands on your hips, standing tall and proud. Think Superman, Superwoman. And or put your hands over your head in a victory pose. This power pose increases testosterone in your bloodstream by 20% and reduces cortisol by 25%. That's pretty amazing, and it only takes 2 minutes. All right, hands on hips, tall and proud. You rock. Yeah, you're doing this. You're doing it. You're standing up, you're power posing. Right now cortisol is dropping, testosterone is going up. Woo! Now put your hands over your head. Victory pose. Come on, let's do this. Bring it home. Feel the stars and the moon and the sun shining down upon you. Feel the Earth's energy moving into your feet, up into your spine, activating your chakras. Woo! Woo, woo. You totally rock. I'm here for you. Booyah!
I'm sure he's just having a bad hair day. The amount of money that this stuff pulls in is even more unbelievable than what you've just seen. The entire global wellness industry, which includes everything from physical fitness through wellness tourism to supplementary medicines, currently pulls in about $6.8 trillion. And by some estimations is estimated to reach nearly $10 trillion by 2030. 1% of that, about $70 billion, is spent by corporations on workplace wellness. This includes things like health risk assessments, biometric screenings, smoking cessation programs, and corporate subscriptions to wellness and mindfulness apps. They get huge workplace insurance discounts for tossing the ball into the workers' court, passing the buck downstream of the responsibilities they don't want to deal with. Spending on that stuff is far less expensive for corporations than actually addressing the causes of workplace maladies, things like chronic stress, anxiety, depression. I could go into what kind of reinventions of the way we do production and business would be required to avoid the soul-destroying and physical and mental health damaging aspects of work in the modern world, and the billions of dollars and social upheavals that would cost. But let's leave that for another video. Let's rather look at why people need so much wellness in the first place, and what it is that makes us fall for this deluge of deceitful doctrines. You've probably never met me before. My name is Craig Dunn. In a former life, I was a journalist, and now I'm learning to be a content creator. I'm not a scientist, not a doctor of anything, but I am an expert in wondering what the... And I bring the Socratic method to recursive interrogation of Claude and Gemini to build my best understandings of things that I'm not academically qualified to pontificate about. First of all, the brain has not evolved as a scientific instrument. It's more of a survival organ. When something's up, it does not wait for scientifically developed proof. It reacts as fast as it can to avoid danger and seek comfort and safety. It uses about 20% of the body's energy, although it only weighs about 2% of the body's mass. Psychology reckons that that is a sound biological reason for why the brain likes to take shortcuts. When we feel disquieting uncertainty, think global pandemics, economic instability, deepfakes, cyber warfare, we can't help but start looking for solutions to restore some sense of equilibrium, some certainty. Thinking is hard, and critical thinking's even harder, especially when you're agitated. But we can't stand the thought of losing control. So especially under circumstances like that, and taking the brain's energy economy into account, preposterous solutions like that you can send your thoughts and dreams out into the universe and the universe will respond, or that you can alter your body chemistry by posing like Superman or Wonder Woman, can actually gain traction. And capitalism, being as cynical and exploitive as it is, doesn't think twice about offering you attractive packages, cheap to produce, but expensive to buy. But hey, I don't want this to be just a takedown video, so I'd like to offer up something that works really well for me. Lucky or unlucky, healthy or unhealthy, my BS filter has been pegged in the red ever since I was a teenager. A little history for context. Bear with me, this is important to understanding everything I've been talking about before. Our quest here is to develop profound clarity in our quest to figure out ways to handle the madness of the world in 2026. I was 9 years old in 1963. My dad was a senior editor in a Scottish national newspaper, so also I knew what was going on in the world at large. In 1961, the US sent 1,400 specially trained Cuban exile soldiers into Cuba to mount a coup against the communist leader Fidel Castro. It was a complete disaster. The whole force was killed or captured within 3 days at Playa Girón, the Bay of Pigs. Fearing an even stronger second attack, Castro asked Russian leader Nikita Khrushchev for help, and the Russians deployed nuclear assets to Cuba and started building nuclear missile sites. In October 1962, an American U-2 spy plane observed those Russian nuclear missile sites under construction, just 90 miles from Florida. Diplomacy and negotiation ensued, but it failed. And President John F. Kennedy ordered a massive naval blockade out in the Atlantic to stop the Russians coming in and doing any more. For 13 days, the US and the Soviets stood eyeball to eyeball, while the world looked on, terrified like a deer frozen in approaching headlights, anticipating a nuclear holocaust. The Russians blinked first. But 1 year later, President Kennedy was assassinated in Dallas, Texas, bringing the whole terrifying episode to a horrible conclusion. I remember being profoundly moved by the entire experience. For Western societies, what followed was the counterculture of the 1960s and 70s, the hippies, the flower children, the sexual revolution, and the Woodstock Festival. We had seen our parents' generation bring the planet to the brink of violent extinction. And our psychological and emotional response was to turn inwards to the sanctity of our own minds and bodies. Woodstock was epic. Jimi Hendrix, Janis Joplin, The Who, Joe Cocker, Santana, Richie Havens, Joan Baez, Crosby, Stills, Nash & Young, Arlo Guthrie, Country Joe and the Fish, Jefferson Airplane, Creedence Clearwater Revival, The Grateful Dead, Sly and the Family Stone, Johnny Winter, The Band, and Sha-Na Na all played over 3 days for almost 500,000 celebrating youth, vehemently celebrating their vigorous reclamation of agency, while angry as hell at the Vietnam War raging on the other side of the world. The next year, 1970, over 600,000 uncontrollably enthusiastic and protesting citizens descended on the Isle of Wight off Portsmouth, England, for a 5-day festival that rocked the British establishment to its core. Jimi Hendrix, The Who, The Doors, Joni Mitchell, Miles Davis, Joan Baez, Jethro Tull, 10 years after, Emerson, Lake and Palmer, Leonard Cohen, Melanie, Pentankle, Sly and the Family Stone, John Sebastian, Taste, Chicago, and the Voices of East Harlem whipped the massive audience into further frenzy and then delivered them home with songs of joy, love, and peace. It was beautiful. It was wild and chaotic, but it was beautiful. The Isle of Wight was also epic. Generous helpings of happy green smokables and ecstasy-inducing medications were also integral ingredients at both festivals. For good or for bad, they were important aspects of the rising youthful discontent. So came the New Age movement, also known as the Age of Aquarius, with the Human Potential movement and the Holistic Consciousness Revolution, marching through the 70s and into the 80s. An entire generation was ready for a new reality, and creative visualization seemed perfectly appropriate, therapeutic even, and spiritually elevating to a great many people. And that's how the $6.8 trillion wellness industry got started. Every generation gets its version of the commercial pitch. Low effort, high leverage acts of mind and body, visualizing, posing, cold plunging, tracking your glucose will produce outsized life events. You just have to buy the package. Zen and metaphysics, neuroscience adjacent language, hormones and hallucinogenics, biomarkers and AI dashboards, all preposterous, in my opinion, substitutes for the real deal. Psychological pragmatism. Everything is not rosy in the garden of the world today. Russia's Vladimir Putin, North Korea's Kim Jong-un, and America's Donald Trump have made dozens of nuclear threats against each other in recent years. Now, because these threats are mostly thought of as political posturing, we don't take them quite as seriously as we did back in the 60s in the Cold War. It's mostly psychological warfare. But that's exactly my point. Psychological warfare, its intent is to instill fear and anxiety. And those are exactly the conditions that made otherwise perfectly rational people adopt creative visualization and power posing in the first place. If we cannot control world politics, we can at least try to control ourselves. The branch of psychology that I like the best is called acceptance and commitment therapy. Now, I've never done the professionally assisted therapy, so I prefer to call it acceptance and commitment theory. In my version of it, it starts with metacognition, thinking about your own thinking. It involves acceptance of your own thoughts and feelings, especially the difficult and distressing ones. Hey, you're not crazy. Everybody goes through this from time to time. Meet your emotions head on. Don't try to magic or medicate them away. See yourself in the context of everything that's going on around you. Focus on the present. Don't worry about the future or dwell on the past. Learn to observe yourself objectively. Take that 30,000-foot view. Identify what really matters to you, your values, your human values, your social values. Figure out and develop action plans, your own ways of dealing with your own demons, and commit to those plans. Actually do the work to navigate your way to a more fulfilling and meaningful life. You cannot buy this stuff in shiny packages or get it from video streaming gurus. I'll pontificate no more. That would be disrespectful to psychology professionals. I'm just a regular layman trying to maintain my own mental health under the pressure and disturbances in the force I feel from knowing about impending climate disasters, the wars in Ukraine and Iran, the wreckage of the society I know by the advent and progress of artificial intelligence, and worrying about my teenage daughter's burgeoning life. I urge you emphatically, if you feel your world spinning out of kilter, familiarize yourself with things like acceptance and commitment theory, cognitive behavioral theory, and seek professional guidance if you can afford it. We all want a sane world and a wonderful future, right? Let's cast aside this BS and get real. Meet me in the comments. Conversations like this are important and hopefully consequential. Have yourselves a great day.